Welcome to No More Illusions, the show that helps you see clearly so you can soar. I'm your host, Joe Kwan, the Connection Counselor. Today, I'm really excited to share a friend of mine that I've had the opportunity to work with and collaborate with, Linda Cutler. Linda, how are you?
Hi, Joe. I'm doing great. How are you today?
Good, good. I think fondly back on some of the women's initiatives we put on together with teaching body language and the importance of sales. It seems like it's been a while and was glad to reconnect with you for this.
Well, thank you, Joe, and I'm really honored to be with you today. I'm very passionate about marketing. I've been doing this for several decades now. Really, the exciting thing about marketing not only is dispelling illusions, but also that it's evolving all the time, and it's really an exciting time to be a marketer.
Excellent. Well, I feel like marketing is one of those things where people think they understand it, but there's probably a lot more nuances that the professionals like yourself, understand and learn the hard lessons over the years. So I'm excited to unpack this illusion that you shared with me, which is marketing is just promoting. So tell us a little bit more about how this is an illusion and what you mean by this is not actually the truth.
Well, sure. Marketing is not what happens after the product is built. Marketing is understanding people well enough to build something that generates interest, buzz, and ultimately ROI. When people hear the word marketing, they often think of advertising, social media, email campaigns, events, and even a cost center. That's truly the illusion. The illusion is that marketing begins when you're ready to sell something. The reality is that marketing begins much earlier. Marketing is a relationship business also. It's really understanding people. It's understanding what they need, what motivates them, what frustrates them, and what they are trying to accomplish. Promotion is simply one expression of that understanding. So without that understanding, promotion is just noise. So as I mentioned, I've spent more than 30 years, hard to believe, in marketing. And one of the biggest misconceptions I've encountered is that marketing is the department that makes things look good, and that's it. In reality, great marketing helps companies make better decisions.
Interesting. So it goes way beyond the slick ads or commercials of today. You mentioned the relationships and the decision making. Talk to us a little bit more about how that adds value to the company and what that really entails.
One lesson I learned early in my career was that companies often become experts in their products, but novices with their clients. They know every feature, every capability, every technical detail, but they haven't spent enough time understanding why clients make decisions. Clients rarely buy features. They buy outcomes, they buy confidence, they buy simplicity, and they buy certainty, really. The companies that win aren't always the ones with the best products. They're often the ones with the deepest understanding of the customer, and that is marketing.
A lot of what you're talking about, I start to think about sales as well. And I know sales and marketing, they do go together. Like you even can say, like the sales and marketing department. But in your mind, what is sort of the relationship between sales and marketing? How are they the same? How are they different?
Sure, that's a great question, Joe. Sales and marketing should be in lockstep no matter what. Marketing is an extension of sales, and sales is an extension of marketing. I firmly believe that neither is successful unless you work really well together. The most recent buzzword and buzz phrase really is account-based marketing or ABM. That's where I've spent the last decade working. And the reason why that came about and the reason why it is now successful is because there was a gap between how if sales and marketing could work together and work together effectively. So I think that's incredibly important. So we make sure that our account plans are aligned, our sensibilities, our value proposition. So everything is in one basket because I feel that we can't move forward or be successful without each other. As I mentioned earlier, marketing is not just a cost center. Marketing adds significant influence pipeline and ultimately ROI. It's proven. So the more specific you are, the more a marketer gets entrenched in the sales process and the account itself, then everybody becomes successful.
Yeah, it's interesting to me just from what little I've learned about marketing, trying to market my podcast or market my own services as a coach. There's often talk about sort of the niche that you have or being very specific, right? That you don't sell to everyone. And it made me think of that when you talked about account-based marketing, your and the relationship that you need to understand with the client and how that really matters. It's not just a general, okay, here's the product, this is how we're going to market it. It really involves the audience and the account.
Right, exactly. So I think you're doing a phenomenal job, Joe, and the things that you talk about are very relevant. But yeah, getting into the details and being a little bit more specific and more personalized really could help. So, for example, I think it's important to identify personas. Who are the folks that are going to learn the most or get the most value from what you're doing? And there's a lot of people that can, for sure. So it's identifying those people and think, who is my ideal audience? Who are the people that I want to reach? And then it's once you identify those folks, and there's multiple ways to do that. AI has become actually quite a wonderful tool. Uh, and then besides that, it's important to just really understand who your audience is, diving into what they care about, and then trying to align the folks, for example, that you're inviting, and hopefully they will align with the topic at hand.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is you could have the greatest product, but if no one knows about it, or even if people do, it doesn't necessarily sell itself because a lot of times we make these decisions before we even have a chance to use the product, right? There's a decision made to purchase it or to try it, to spend money on it before we actually get to see what whether we like it or not.
That's true, Joe. Marketing is not about convincing people, it's about understanding people. So the companies that thrive are not always the loudest, but they're the most relevant. That's why, relevance comes from listening. So the more intel that you capture, the more conversations that you have and the more listening that you do, then that'll help you figure out who your target audience is and anticipating that they would be really interested in what you're selling. So this is why, getting back to account-based marketing, when one does their due diligence as a marketer and understands the need, understands the issue we're trying to solve, and then working again in lockstep with the sales organization, that's where success comes in.
And how do marketing teams, what sort of things do they do to do this research and to learn these things? Just because I've never really been too much in the marketing world, but what are some of the methods or services that they use to get this research and intel?
Oh, certainly. So the first thing that I would do is, typically if you're working with an account, for example, then you would get the account plan. I was actually working with somebody recently and I asked for the account plan and she couldn't believe it. She said, wow. And I said, how come you're saying wow? She said, because I've never heard a marketer ask me for the account plan. I think that's honestly baseline, Joe, because that's how you get intel into the account. There's so much due diligence that's done by the sales organization, by some research folks within an organization, and if you tap into that knowledge, then that gives you, honestly, it gives you better outcomes.
Linda, for our audience, for those who aren't as familiar with that term, can you perhaps simply break down what is an account plan?
Certainly. An account plan is when the sales organization works with folks on the account side. So any of the large, say large or medium sized or small organizations, it's just really getting to know them. And that's where the listening comes in. And then the account plan just dives into, what are you trying to solve for? What are the issues that you're facing currently? What can we do in the short term and the long term to help you be successful? And then just collecting and gathering all of that intel. becomes the account plan. If so, we work together at KPMG, and there are a lot of opportunities for clients on advisory tax and even on the audit side as well. So if you understand the needs of the client, you understand that you think that there is uh, an opportunity that could really work well for the client, then you put those suggestions in there. So you're basing it off of the intel that you received from the client. So if they have a tax issue or they have a local tax issue, then you do your due diligence on what could really be helpful to the client and what could help them grow. So it's not counterintuitive, but if you're paying for a service that offers efficiency, then that's going to save you more money in the long run. Where marketing comes in is that we understand what the issues are, working with the sales team, and then we come up with a strategy or a plan, and which products, for example, at KPMG, would we use to help the client be successful.
So you have the account plan. You are learning a little bit more about the conversations that sales and research did. How does that transition into the marketing that's actually done, and how does that go beyond just promoting?
Well, that's a good question. I have a good example actually. One of my favorite examples comes from my time, of course, at KPMG. A partner came to me and essentially said, "I need a brochure." Now, we could have done exactly what he asked. We could have created a beautiful brochure and checked the box, right?
Sure.
But marketing is not about a check the box exercise. My question back was, "Why do you need a brochure?" And it wasn't accusatory. It was a very, matter of fact kind of question. And what we discovered was that actually that he wasn't looking for a brochure at all. He was trying to open doors with a specific set of executive buyers. So the brochure wasn't the problem, access was the problem.
Hmm.
So instead of creating a brochure, we built an account-based strategy around the target executives. So that's using the account plan that we developed. Then we developed thought leadership, engagement opportunities, personalized outreach, and sales enablement material. So the result wasn't just a pretty brochure. The result was business development. So that's when I realized marketing isn't about creating assets, it's about solving business problems.
Yeah, because the brochure is a pure promoting thing almost. Sure, you could take into the context who the brochure is for, but at its core, it's just producing something for people to look at. It's not as sophisticated as what you just described in terms of a sort of multimodal approach to really build relationships and gain access and open doors.
That's right. That was really, really interesting and eye-opening because I feel like if you learn to develop and ask the right questions, you'll get the outcome that you're looking for. So marketing is also about people. It's also about, developing trust with your account team, but also anything that you're working on with them is going to translate directly to the client, and that becomes a make or break moment. So I think the more specific you are, the more you can potentially drill down to, like in our business, a certain service line or a certain area. And then at the client itself, if there's a particular area and we know who the players are in that space, that's who we're trying to market to. And then once you have that information, the metrics that follow can really give you a sense of whether something is working or not working within the account.
Yeah, it strikes me as kind of interesting. Love the example you gave that sometimes when people are asking for something, and this is sort of the relationship aspects that you keyed in on before, the request is could be very specific, but it's important to understand as someone who's serving that person or collaborating the need that that request is flowing from, because you could easily fulfill the request in a technical sense without help meeting the need or doing it in a way that's less effective than something else that you could do.
That's exactly right. So that's where the specifics come in, and that's why it's so important because if you're honing in on a particular demographic or a particular executive or buying group, something like that, it's really hard to communicate effectively to a really wide audience.
Mhm.
It's so much easier to once you have the specifics of what you're trying to accomplish, the drilling down really makes the most sense because having casting a wide net, it's not a bad thing. I mean, if you're talking about a particular industry, then that's okay. But then couple that with some specifics that you can incorporate that will show the client, this is exactly what you need. This is what's going to help you. This is going to offer efficiencies, cost savings, et cetera. And you're basically telling them without saying it, like I hear you, I understand what your pain points are, and let's solve them together.
Yeah, I mean, I think about some cold emails that I just get from people for random services, some of them relevant to what I do, and some of them just totally off the wall. And you can tell when someone actually has thought about you or at least has decided that you're in a demographic that would be interested in their services. Like the feel of the email you receive or the direct message is very, very different versus, for lack of a better word, the spammy ones where they're just going out to any address that they can find, and you look at it and you're like, why would you send this to me? You're not even in the ballpark of me being interested, let alone spending any money with you.
Right, and that happens quite often. What's really interesting is, for example, in Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you start looking at different things on Instagram or you like somebody's page that is specific to a corner of some industry. So say if you're a woman and you're looking at a lot of cosmetics or looking at makeup tutorials, for example, then you are suddenly going to receive a million ads. And it's smart because the algorithm picked up that this is what you're into right now. And also it is kind of it's going to the side of, of the brain that could be impulsive and you want you want to buy something. So I've fallen into this trap many times. So if I see something and I click on it or I like something, then I'm going to receive ads for days on end about particular products that were in the reel that I was looking at. So it's pretty smart that way, but it really is effective in some instances because, again, people are impulsive when they buy sometimes. Uh, but also, they're assuming rightfully that if you are looking at something and you really like something that was mentioned, then they want to make it as easy as possible for you to buy it, and they usually get what they want.
Well, it's interesting. I really believe that the principles underlying how people relate to each other, how we purchase things, how we vote, whatever, those are not going to change. They're pretty consistent. However, I feel like technology perhaps has created different strategies to take advantage of those principles, some of them quite powerful because of all the tracking that goes on and all the information that we offer up willingly to some of our favorite apps, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or what's it? There was another one. I was talking to a coworker of mine, and they were like really distraught because TikTok. They were like addicted to TikTok. They were like, "Joe, this is bad. I find myself late at night doom scrolling." She was like, "I know it's not good, but it's like it's very powerful."
It is, and I am guilty of this sometimes, so I completely understand this. But it's also because I feel that these reels or these TikTok videos are so short, and they're tapping into the shorter attention span that most of us have these days. So if you're going through it, and then again that algorithm kicks in, then you're going to be you're going to end up buying something that you either didn't necessarily want but felt compelled to purchase because it was in front of you and the algorithm suggested it. So I do think that we're all we're all guilty of this, but we don't have to give in to the temptation.
So one thing I'm curious about is when it comes to marketing in an account, a large account, a sophisticated company, how is that different than how perhaps a lot of people listening to the show think about marketing, like commercials that you see on TV for the Super Bowl or just a commercial you might get while you're listening to a podcast? How is that marketing for businesses and accounts? How is that approach different or the same?
When you're marketing in an advertising space, uh, there's a lot of research and a lot of time and energy that goes into that commercial that you're seeing or hearing. And this is very methodical. This is not just something that people just put together, especially for the Super Bowl where ads are probably $1 million plus. So there's a significant amount of research that goes into it. And you're just identifying, well, who's the demographic that watches the Super Bowl? What is the hook? You also want it to be incredibly memorable. So I tend to really pay attention to these commercials because they make me laugh and they're just hilarious. And then you're equating that product with the way that it made you feel. And that's really what marketing is. It's a feeling, and you're tapping into people's you know their emotions, and you want to either like tug at their heartstrings or make them laugh, but the emotion is absolutely attached to it. So I think in doing your due diligence, you can understand who is the best people that you want to get in front of. And also for a podcast, if you know that your topic is about no illusions, but it's about marketing, then hopefully there are marketers that are listening to this. And then you're in turn, figuring out, well, who is the demographic for this? Not just marketers. Is it women in a certain age range? So most likely you would put commercials on there, or somebody would purchase ad space to satisfy that demographic, and they would remember it. So there's it being memorable as a commercial and evoking an emotion, and then there's tapping into the right demographic, and that is a recipe for success.
Well, what's interesting to me about what you're saying is there's times where I can feel the marketing has really been effective, where a company has a product or a service, and like you were saying, they hit the emotions, they do something in a way that I'm more likely to buy from them, right? The trust has been developed, they've tapped into the timing of the impulsivity, whatever it is, right? So like you can kind of feel like, hey, maybe I'm not going to buy it right now, but I feel like I like this. I may buy it in the near term. There are other times where someone's marketing to me and I laugh at the commercial. I think it's great and it generates some goodwill, but I'm never really going to buy that product just because it's not something I need or it's not aligned with anything I do. And it's always just been curious to me that perhaps there's a value to marketing beyond just the dollars, right? There could be a value towards the company representing something in my mind, and that has some sort of independent value to the actual purchase, although, purchases are ultimately what makes the company go around. So I was just curious to get your perspective on sort of the different outcomes or benefits of marketing beyond just a click or a purchase.
So clicks and metrics are important because they help you shift the narrative. So if you see that there is not a lot of activity, for example, if you send something out, then you want to pivot pretty quickly. So you always hopefully fail fast and move on. You don't just fall hard and then dwell on it. So the information, yeah, it's not just about clicks for sure. So for example, at KPMG, I spent years leading account-based marketing for some of the largest financial services accounts you could think of. One thing I learned quickly is that executives don't wake up asking how many people clicked on the email, right? They care about revenue and they care about growth. They care about client relationships. And so do we. The illusion is that marketing success is measured just by activity. The reality is that marketing success is measured by business outcomes. So some of the programs my team worked on contributed to millions of dollars in incremental revenue opportunities, not because we promoted more, not because we were concerned about clicks. It's because we understood client priorities better. We listened more carefully. As I mentioned earlier, listening is incredibly important. We aligned the right expertise to the right, client challenge. So that's marketing at its most effective and highest level. So those are the things that you really want to pay attention to because yes, an actually antiquated way of getting metrics these days is unfortunately is MQLs, SQLs, and clicks. They're perfectly fine, but in a demand gen, demand gen marketing world, it's more than that. It's the clients really do understand when they come right before they come in the door. They kind of already know what they're looking for, and we're going to help them realize that and let them know that it's the right idea. So that's the listening part. That's understanding the client. It's understanding their priorities, and then executing based on that, not just the kind of clicks or the kind of outputs that are not related to, tackling the challenge at hand.
Well, it's interesting to me that marketing has a somewhat specialized role, separate but sitting alongside whoever's running the account and the person who has the relationship, let's say directly, and is, I would say, like more tagged for bringing in that revenue. But marketing is able to provide perhaps a wider or different lens than if it was just that person all alone having to figure that out, all by themselves.
That's right. And I think that's what it's important to build trust, to build, to build a community, to just say that we're all in this together. So that's why I love a lot of firms these days in an account-based marketing situation. Uh, they assign a marketer, they assign a salesperson, they have, you know, leadership that is aligned to that account. So we're all working together and we're all working in tandem, and we should all be as well versed as possible for the accounts that we're working on. That makes us better partners. That makes us, more trusted. That makes us, invaluable, really, and hopefully to the account team because we're adding significant value. We could be seeing things that sales might not even think about or realize because of the research that one does. So I think it's important to be in lockstep, but also even be ahead a little bit just so you're building your credibility and adding as much value as possible.
So I'm curious with all the hubbub about AI and its potential, and I lean on it for certain things I do for my website and coming up with descriptions very quickly. There's certain tasks that I find it really has made things a lot easier for me, and I actually pay for it because it was so useful when I had a particular project and the free version didn't give me enough access. So I was like, this is actually pretty valuable. I'll pay a few bucks for it, just like you would pay for, let's say, a streaming subscription. Curious what you started to see in terms of the different uses of artificial intelligence in your world in marketing. And I understand this is all just developing still, and we're not sure where it's going to land. But I'm just curious to get your thoughts and your perspective because it is, I think, still early days.
That's right. It's really interesting. Folks have a lot of different ideas about AI. The number one thing is my job going to be eliminated?
Sure.
Uh, and my thoughts on AI are companies are honestly not investing as much as people think they are. They like the idea of it. It's a shiny new thing. It's exciting. But you have to understand that AI is powerful, but it's artificial intelligence. It's not critical thinking. It's not adding your personal stamp. There's hallucinations around that there may not be accuracy in the output. So these are all things that you can look for. I use it every day. I do the same thing as you. On a personal level, I also pay for platforms to get the most out of it and to hold on to all of my conversations and queries. But at work, in the last several years, every firm basically has a version of ChatGPT, but they call it something proprietary. And that's really where it ends until there's a comfort level, people are trained properly, and you're able to spot, some of these buzzwords that only AI produces and the same terms that you see constantly. Uh, so it's a phenomenal tool when you want to brainstorm, when you want to check spelling, grammar, punctuation. But AI right now, as you mentioned, is in its infancy stages. I think it's an incredibly great and powerful tool the more you use it. That's the agentic model where it gets to know you, it gets to understand kind of your habits and the way that you ask questions and what you're asking exactly. So I think AI is still a bit away, and I'm hoping that people don't take so much stock in it and think that their jobs are going to be eliminated because it still takes a person, no matter what, in order to get the output that you're truly looking for and you're adding the most value to your clients that you're working with.
Yeah, what's interesting to me about it is that the results I get from it really rely on my initial thinking and what I'm trying to do with it, right? Like the results don't generate themselves. And when I've had the best results, it's actually from an iteration, right? It'll say something, I'll review that, and then I'll say, well, what I really want to do is this, or it'll send me off in a different direction. So in that sense, it can be super useful as a tool, but I don't see it yet doing anything where it's generating like the original thought or process because there's still a human. And then, like you said, Linda, you got to review it to make sure that it's not hallucinating or that it's actually matching the goal of the organization.
That's exactly right. And one of the things that I truly love about, these proprietary derivations of ChatGPT is that they should be written and they should be focused on the organizational standards, on the brand standards, on the values of the organization. So that way it honestly like really is just saving you time. It's so helpful that way because you're not, for example, trying to you know upload the brand standards or the values of the organization or even what can you offer a client. It's really baked in there, and that's the most effective way to use it, I think, if that is done up front. So if you're fortunate that your company has that and that you're utilizing it, then your output is going to become much more efficient and hopefully closer to your original intent. Also, it's important to use it sparingly. Like I said, it's great for generating ideas, but then really dive into those ideas, and I guarantee you, it will spark something in you and help you complete the thought, if that makes sense. Because if you're relying totally on AI to think for you and generate the outcome that you're looking for, it truly just isn't going to happen. But for me, I've had examples where I put in a prompt asking it to generate some taglines that would make sense for a distribution or a campaign that I was working on. What ends up happening is it spits out some some thoughts, but then some of them aren't great. And instead of wasting your own time and putting in more prompts and saying this isn't what I was thinking, really look into it and dissect it and say, this is a great start, but I want to get to a certain end. And then I do think it does spark something, and you end up getting to the end result that you need to. So it's a great starter, like I said, but you're able to, put in your own thoughts and your own critical thinking to get the outcome you're looking for.
Yeah, when before you were talking about metrics and we were having that conversation, and now we're transitioning a little bit to talk about AI and its impact on marketing. I recalled an article, I think it was over the last couple of days, that was pretty interesting, where a lot of companies, as you mentioned, they have these platforms and they're encouraging their employees to use them. And some of them are encouraging them in a way, the article said, that incentivizes them to participate, but not necessarily to produce. So what was happening is people would put in any sort of ridiculous entry because they didn't want to be the person on the spreadsheet that didn't use it at all. They didn't want to be called in a way or looked down on in a way. But what companies were finding is each time someone in their company uses it and generates a token, I think they were talking about, it costs the company money. So what the companies were finding is because it wasn't incentivized in the right way and people perhaps didn't really understand the best use of it, they were using it a lot. It was costing the company a lot and it wasn't generating the outcome. So companies were like, wait. Maybe we need the right people to use this and to use it in the right way rather than to have everyone participate out of some fear-based notion and not actually use it in a way that it's intended to be used and help.
That's really interesting, Joe. I think that now I'm very happy that so many organizations are training people on AI. They're making it their mission. They're not just settling for the fact that they created something, they're paying for it, and that either everyone's going to use it or they're going to use it the right way. So I think it's really exciting. It's an exciting time to be a marketer in particular, because it's changing constantly. And if you're not adapting, then you're going to leave, you're going to be behind. So I think the great thing about it is that the investment that companies are making is making it easier for people to really understand the nuance. Companies are creating, agents that they're sharing with other people to get the efficient outcomes that they're looking for. And they're also just giving people the tools that they need to be successful with these types of new and shiny objects that are being put in front of them.
Yeah. So this may seem a bit random, but intern season is upon us. And so interns will be showing up at companies all over. And my son actually applied for an internship next year for his senior year. So he'll be going to the UN 1 day a week to do that. And I'm just curious, from your perspective over the scope of your career, when interns are coming in now, or let's say recent college grads and they starting a career in marketing, what sort of things do they need to start to learn and to concentrate on? And how different is this sort of virtual world that we live in terms of your ability to learn some of these things? Like how much of it is dependent on someone actually being there and teaching you versus how much you can learn in more of a virtual hybrid environment? It's fascinating to me because you and I were, this COVID and the whole hybrid opening up and working from home happened to us after we had already developed most of our skills and career, and maybe not most of them, but like a significant amount, right? Like we weren't just starting out. So it's always curious to me to get people's perspective on how that impacts the more junior people that you may end up training as they come into your company.
I love this question. I love this anecdote. It's so exciting. I remember when I was an intern and how excited I was and how much I wanted to learn. Uh, yeah, the pandemic was definitely a challenging time, but it did show all of us not only what's important in general, but that you can work effectively in a kind of a solitary environment. I'm really happy to see, and a lot of people kind of groan at this, but I truly enjoy being in the office. I'm in the office 3 days a week. I love it. I love the energy of especially the younger people in the audience, and our interns actually started last week. So I think it's exciting because of all the opportunity in general. But from a marketing standpoint, if you're interning, you know, take advantage of the FaceTime. Get comfortable with FaceTime. That's not going to go away either. So it's important to ask questions, to be curious always, and just really listen to folks that have been around. And conversely, I learned so much from interns. I learned so much from a younger generation because they have a different perspective. They learned a lot of what we're doing right now in school when a lot of us did not have that opportunity. So I take advantage of the opportunity to teach somebody and mentor somebody because I love that. But also, I love the opportunity to pick a younger person's brain and really learn from them. So it should be a reciprocal relationship. So I would say be curious, listen, uh, ask a lot of questions, and really understand that this person has experience and they're in the role that they're in for a reason. But then also the person who, is receiving these interns, then take the opportunity to get to know them as well. It's not just about dictation or about you teaching somebody. You can learn a lot from somebody who has a different perspective and learns things differently.
Yeah, I love that, Linda. And what's interesting to me is that I feel maybe folks, because of where we are in our current sort of trajectory of what's normal for work, have perhaps underestimated the power of presence and being in the presence of someone, making a human connection, asking questions that may not get asked virtually, not that you couldn't, but sometimes just in the natural flow of just like being in the break room with someone or after a meeting, it's just more conducive to certain connections and how that can really impact your career in ways you can't really predict. But I feel, at least it has for my career, there's been a significant boost in what comes out of those conversations that are not planned. They're sort of spontaneous, and it's because we're there together and you make eye contact or someone notices something you did or something you're wearing and they're interested in it and they come over and they say, "Oh, do you go to that beach or do you do this?" And it can really make a big difference. So I always try to encourage interns and younger professionals not to underestimate the ability to have a small talk or a decent conversation to make a good impression in person.
I love that, Joe, and I think that's super important. And I think that is something that tends to be missing. I think being around people, it energizes you. I think it's really exciting to learn from somebody else. I started my new job 2 months ago, and I'm really excited because we're in the office 3 days a week, and I make it my business, whether I'm comfortable or not, to go up to somebody that I don't know and say hi and introduce myself
Yeah.
and ask them questions and say, how long have you been here? What has your experience been? Talk to me about some of the things that you're working on. And that's how you build relationships. And somebody on my team made me laugh because a couple weeks in, he said, "So do you know everybody yet?" Um, and but I really just like people, and I am naturally a curious person, and I really care about people and their stories. Everybody has something that they can bring to the table. So I make it my mission to introduce myself to somebody that I don't know. And I'm building those relationships and I'm understanding different facets of the business because that's going to make me a better marketer and it's going to make me more well-rounded. So I think that that's important advice that I took early on in my career is to just be open and to talk to people and to get perspective and to be curious. And that really helps quite a bit. And I don't think that that's going to go away anytime soon. So I think that advice is really important and warranted.
Yeah, one thing I'm really taking away from what you're sharing, Linda, is the relationship aspect of marketing and just understanding people, connecting with them, and also understanding what connects, what they connect with. And that's really, really powerful. And that kind of dovetails with what I like to think about as the connection counselor and how to really be able to connect to anyone, anytime, anywhere, not specifically in a marketing context, but just as a human being and as a professional. And what I've noticed sometimes is, and I'm guilty of this, I'm not the type of person that naturally thinks of what others need automatically. It's not like in my awareness naturally, right? I'm firstborn male child. So I have a much more kind of selfish, kind of narrow view. But sometimes, every once in a while, I'll realize, like, wait a second, it's important to think about what other people might need. And it's a really simple way to sort of naturally generate positive relationships. And I'll give you an example. And I think this happens less because of our sort of virtual world and that we are kind of in our own sort of spaces and we don't have to deal with anyone else. I think that that can have a negative impact in that we're going to not really think about other people as much. So my example is my boss is flying in from the UK today, and so I found out he mentioned that he's taking the bus from New York to come into Montvale. And so I guess because when people come into Montvale internationally, I always try to be a bit of a host, even though I'm probably not the best host. But I said, look, where are you coming in? I can pick you up because I'm going to be in the office anyway. I can take you from wherever the bus drops you off to the office or to lunch or wherever you need to go for the meeting. And then he said, okay, maybe I'll let you know. And then I stopped and I thought about it. And just the other day, I thought, wait a second, if he's going to be in the office, I don't know if he's got a desk. So maybe I should check him out a hotel desk. So I talked to facilities and I got him a desk. And part of this is just being a good host. And part of it is, maybe it gives me more of an opportunity to talk to my boss and get to know him because he's new, right? So it kind of serves two goals. And it was kind of interesting because he even mentioned, we communicated over email and he was like, oh, thanks for getting me the desk because I did want to put some stuff down before I went to my meetings. And, where's he going to put it down, right? Because he doesn't have a space and everything's hoteled. And he said, oh, hopefully we'll get a chance to talk in the afternoon, even though he's chock-a-block meetings. But I just think, it's just like a human thing to consider other people, to have those relationships. And I think sometimes with technology, I think working, virtually, I think it's a shame when we kind of lose that humanity and that ability to think for other people. And I just think it makes you feel good, right? Because you're being a good human being. And two, it's just got relationship advantages because you're seen as a person who actually is thoughtful and considerate.
That's exactly right, Joe. And I love that. And you're not giving yourself enough credit because you're very kind and considerate and thoughtful. But one component that you did not mention is it shows that you're detail oriented. And
Mm,
it shows that this is what AI can't do. It's critical thinking. It's just anticipating the needs of somebody. And it's a simple gesture, but they're going to remember that. Like, wow, Joe really thought about what my needs were and anticipated what would make things easier for me. So these are little things, but they have big impact. So that's definitely something that folks need to be mindful of. Same thing happened with my boss. He came in from Chicago, and I thought of all of those things. I got him a conference room so he could have some private meetings or conversations. I got a hotel desk for him. Made sure that his badge worked in New York, and he was coming from Chicago. So yeah, these are just thoughtful things that make a big impact, especially when you're trying to make an impression with somebody. But it's also the right thing to do.
yeah.
So I'm glad that you're seeing and thinking that way, and I think everyone should think that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Linda, it's really been a pleasure chatting with you and learning more about marketing, which is not my forte or a place that I usually play around in. If people want to talk a little bit more with you or just learn more about what you do based on our conversation today, what's the best way to get in touch or learn more?
Well, I would be honored if anybody wanted to reach out to me. I love mentoring. I love helping people and helping them guide through their career with the experience that I have. I'm on LinkedIn at Linda J. Cutler. My middle name is Joy, and I love it. So I always try to incorporate my middle initial or my middle name. So please look for me on there. I have, you know, shoulder length brown hair, and I have a big smile on my face because I love and I am passionate about what I do. And one thing I wanted to leave the audience with is that promotion is what people see. Understanding is what creates results.
Love it. Promotion is what people see. Understanding is what creates results. Love it. Love it. Well, Linda, thank you so much for being our guest today on No More Illusions.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure and an honor to be with you.
If you're enjoying the show, make sure to follow it on Spotify. It really does help more people discover it. And check out the No More Illusions website at nomoreillusions.lovable.app, where you'll find resources to help you see clearly so you can soar, including my Audible audiobooks, Unlock Your Charisma and Unlock Your Executive Presence, plus Path to Promotion, a self-paced online course created for high performers whose advancement has stalled and who want to understand how promotions really work so they can start getting appreciated today, not someday. Thanks for listening to No More Illusions. I'm Joe Kwan, the Connection Counselor. Take care and remember, clarity reveals, illusion steals.